before we get into anything dark or disturbing, let's talk about where this place actually is. The Dunwich building is located in the Capital Wasteland in Fallout 3. If you've played the game, you've probably walked past it without thinking much of it. It sits southwest of Rivet City, northeast of Megaton, tucked away in a corner of the map that most players never fully explore. From the outside, it looks like any other ruined office building. Crumbling walls, broken windows, a few feral ghouls wandering around outside. Nothing that screams, "This is the most disturbing location in the game." That's kind of the point. There's no quest that sends you here. No NPC that tells you to check it out. The game just leaves it there, waiting for whoever is curious enough to walk through the door. And the further you go inside, the more you realize the building didn't want you to leave. Most horror in Fallout makes sense. Radiation turned people into ghouls, science gone wrong created super mutants, war and greed burned the world to ash. Even the aliens we've talked about before. Cold, clinical, terrifying in their own way, but understandable. They're just another species doing what species do. But there is one thread running through the Fallout universe that doesn't fit any of that. One mystery that has no clean explanation. No faction behind it. No pre-war science to blame. Something ancient. Something that existed long before America. Long before civilization. Long before humanity had the words to describe what it was. And two games, Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, quietly, carefully, left breadcrumbs leading straight to it. Today, we're following those breadcrumbs all the way to the bottom. This is the full story of Dunwich. Before we go inside, we need to talk about a writer named Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Lovecraft was an American author from the early 1900s, who basically invented a genre of horror. Not the kind of horror where a killer chases you, not the kind where a ghost haunts a house. Lovecraftian horror is about something far worse. The idea that the universe is vast, ancient, and completely indifferent to human existence. That there are entities so old and so incomprehensible that simply learning about them is enough to destroy a person's mind. His most famous creations include Cthulhu, the Necronomicon, and a story called The Dunwich Horror, about a small New England town where something ancient and evil stirs beneath the earth, worshipped by a local cult that has been keeping its existence secret for generations. Sound familiar? Bethesda didn't accidentally name this location Dunwich. They were making a direct reference, a promise to the player that what they were about to find wasn't random. It was deliberate. It was connected to something much older and much darker than the nuclear war that ended the world. So let's go inside. The first few floors of the Dunwich building feel almost normal for a post-apocalyptic ruin, anyway. Feral ghouls, collapsed ceilings, scattered pre-war junk, the kind of environment you've seen 100 times in Fallout 3. But there are terminals scattered throughout the building, and if you stop to read them, really read them, you start to notice something is off. The terminals belong to workers and residents connected to a company called Dunwich, and the entries start professionally enough. Business records, maintenance logs, standard corporate communication. But the further down you go, the more the tone shifts. Workers start recording strange dreams, a pull toward the lower floors, an inability to sleep. Some entries become fragmented, half-finished sentences, words that don't connect, descriptions of things seen in the dark that the writer can't fully put into words. And then some entries just stop, mid-sentence, like whoever was writing simply got up and walked away. Here's where Dunwich Building does something genuinely remarkable for a video game location. As you descend deeper into the building, your character starts experiencing visions, unprompted, uncontrollable. You're walking through a ruined corridor, and suddenly the world shifts. You see hooded figures performing rituals, flames, chanting, something being worshipped that you can't fully see, and then it's gone. You're back in the ruin. Nothing has changed, except something feels different now. These visions aren't explained. The game just shows them to you and trusts you to piece it together. What you're seeing are echoes, memories burned into the building itself by decades of dark ritual. Whatever happened here left a mark so deep that 200 years later, long after the bombs, long after everything, it's still replaying. And at the very bottom of the Dunwich building, you find the altar. It's not elaborate, it's not dramatic, just a stone altar in a basement room, surrounded by candles and markings that don't match any known religion or language. and carved into the walls, repeated over and over, is a name: Ug-Qualtoth. This is the entity at the center of everything. And the game tells you almost nothing about it, which is exactly right. Lovecraftian horror works because the unknown is scarier than any description. The moment you fully explain a monster, it loses its power. What we can piece together from the terminals and the environment is this: Ug-Qualtoth is ancient, pre-war, pre-colonial. It has been worshipped by a secret cult operating in the shadows of American society for a very long time. The Dunwich Company and the building itself was connected to this cult. And the rituals performed here weren't random. They had a purpose. What that purpose was, the game leaves up to you. So who are these people? Who worship something like Ug-Qualtoth? The terminals give us fragments. The cult wasn't made up of desperate wasteland survivors looking for meaning. These were pre-war people, educated people, people with jobs and offices and corporate connections. The Dunwich Company appears to have been a front, or at least partially a front, for cult activity. Ordinary business on the surface, something much darker underneath. Meetings that aren't in any official calendar. Expenses that don't match any legitimate business purpose. References to initiations and rituals, buried in language that sounds almost normal if you're not paying attention. It's unsettling precisely because it's so mundane. These weren't people living on the fringes. They were your neighbors, your coworkers. And they were devoted to something ancient and incomprehensible, right up until the bombs fell. Now here's where things get really interesting. The Dunwich building in Fallout 3 was easy to write off as a one-time Easter egg, a creepy location, a Lovecraft reference. A cool piece of environmental storytelling, Bethesda being clever. But then Fallout 4 came out, set in a completely different city, Boston, hundreds of miles from the capital wasteland. A different map, a different cast of characters, a different story, and Dunwich showed up again. Not the building, something new, something that suggests the story didn't end in that basement in Washington, D.C. It was just beginning. Dunwich Bores is located in the Commonwealth Fallout 4's Boston setting, just north of the glowing sea, southwest of the map. Like the building in Fallout 3, it doesn't look like much from the outside. A quarry, a mining operation, industrial equipment rusting in the wasteland. Raiders have moved in, using it as a base. Nothing about the exterior suggests what's waiting at the bottom. And also, like the Dunwich building, there's no quest that sends you here, no companion who mentions it. The game just leaves it on the map, unnamed, until you get close enough to discover it yourself. So what was this place before the war? Dunwich Borers LLC was a pre-war mining and excavation company operating in the Boston area. On paper, they were extracting stone and minerals from the earth. Standard industrial operation, but the worker terminals tell a different story. Sound familiar? Because we've seen this before. The early entries are professional. Production targets, safety reports, shift schedules, but as you go deeper into the quarry, literally and figuratively, the entries change. Workers report dreams they can't shake, a pull toward the lower levels, an obsession with digging deeper, past the point where any legitimate mining operation would stop. Some workers describe hearing things in the dark, at the bottom of the excavation, something that isn't wind, something that isn't machinery. And management, instead of shutting it down, instead of evacuating the workers, kept pushing them deeper, because management knew exactly what was down there. As you descend through Dunwich Borers, the atmosphere gets heavier with every level. The upper areas feel like a standard Fallout location. Raiders, industrial equipment, dim lighting, but the further down you go, the more the environment changes. The walls get older, the construction gets cruder. You're moving through layers of time from pre-war industry down into something much more ancient, and the visions start again. Just like the Dunwich building in Fallout 3, your character experiences flashes of the past. Hooded figures, fire, ritual, the same chanting, the same devotion to something that exists just outside of what the human mind can fully process. These aren't the memories of the mining workers. These are much older. Whatever is at the bottom of this quarry, people have been coming here for a very long time. And at the very bottom of Dunwich Borers, submerged in dark, still water, you find it, an altar, ancient stone, markings that match the ones from the Dunwich building in Fallout 3. and the same name carved into the rock, Ug-Qualtoth. The Dunwich company wasn't mining for stone, they were digging toward this. Deliberately, knowingly, they knew the altar was down there, and they were trying to reach it, or trying to reach whatever the altar was a doorway to. Touch the altar and you get a vision more vivid than anything in Fallout 3. Robed figures performing a ritual around this exact spot, centuries ago. Something vast and dark at the edges of the vision, just out of focus, just beyond what the human eye can make sense of. And then it ends. You're back in the dark water, the altar glowing faintly. Whatever is down here, it's still there, still waiting. 200 years of nuclear apocalypse didn't touch it. So let's connect the dots. In Fallout 3, we have a cult operating out of a corporate building in Washington, D.C., worshipping an entity called Ug-Qualtoth and performing rituals in a basement altar. In Fallout 4, we have a corporate mining company in Boston digging toward an ancient altar dedicated to the same entity, Ug-Qualtoth, and driving their workers to madness in the process. Same name, same entity, different cities, different eras, different games. This is not a coincidence. This is Bethesda telling us quietly, across 2 games, without ever making it a main quest or a major story beat, that Ug-Qualtoth is real, that the cult is real, that something ancient has been exerting influence over human civilization for a very long time, and the nuclear war didn't stop it. If anything, it may have helped. Now let's get into what the community has pieced together, because the official lore only takes us so far. Theory 1. Ug-Qualtoth caused the war. Some fans believe the cult's rituals were specifically designed to bring about the apocalypse, that Ug-Qualtoth feeds on suffering or chaos, and the Great War was the ultimate offering. The bombs didn't just happen, they were cultivated, guided. The resource wars, the political tensions, the slow collapse of civilization, all of it nudged in the right direction by people who knew what they were working toward. Theory 2. The Dunwich company was more powerful than we think. We know Vault-Tec had enormous influence over pre-war America. Some fans theorize that Dunwich Borers LLC had similar reach, that the company wasn't just a mining operation, but a network of cult activity spanning multiple cities, multiple industries, multiple layers of pre-war society. Theory 3. Ug-Qualtoth is connected to the Children of Adam. The Children of Adam worship radiation as a divine force. They believe being consumed by it leads to transcendence. Some fans see a connection between their belief system and the Dunwich cult, both centered on the idea that there is something beyond human existence, something vast and powerful that can be reached if you're willing to go far enough. The glowing sea, which we covered in a previous video, sits right next to Dunwich Borers. That might not be an accident either. Theory 4. It's still active. The cult didn't die with the bombs. The altar is still there. The entity is still there. And somewhere in the wasteland there are people who still know the name Ug-Qualtoth, still performing the rituals. Fallout is a series about very human failures. Greed, pride, the inability to change. War never changes. The thesis statement of the entire franchise is fundamentally about human nature, about how we keep making the same mistakes no matter what. The Dunwich thread complicates that in a really interesting way. Because if Ug-Qualtoth is real, if something ancient and incomprehensible has been influencing human civilization for centuries, then maybe some of those failures weren't entirely our fault. Maybe the war wasn't just greed and politics. Maybe something was pushing, something that wanted the world to end. Or maybe that's exactly what an ancient evil would want you to think, that it's not your fault, that you couldn't have stopped it. The genius of the Dunwich lore is that it never answers these questions. It just asks them. Quietly, in the basement of a ruined building, at the bottom of a flooded quarry, in a carved name that nobody can fully explain. Ug-Qualtoth. The Dunwich locations are some of the most carefully crafted horror in any Fallout game. Easy to miss, impossible to forget once you find them. And the fact that Bethesda connected them across 2 games without ever making it a main quest, without ever fully explaining it, shows a level of restraint that makes the mystery so much more powerful. Some things are scarier when you don't know what they are. Some things are worse when you do. If you made it this far, thank you. This is exactly the kind of deep lore that doesn't get enough attention. If you want more breakdowns like this, subscribe and drop a comment telling me what you want next. And maybe don't go digging where you're not supposed to.